Hello. Today I wanted to share some mythology retelling books that are on my TBR for 2025. So let's get into it. The first book I have for you today is Daughters of Sparta, and this is by Claire Haywood. This is actually a UK paperback, and this has been in publication for a while, and I just have not had the chance to get around to it. So I'm very curious about Claire Haywood's take on the Spartan children. That includes Clytemnestra and Helen. Very intrigued by this. The next book I have is also by Claire Haywood, and this is The Shadow of Perseus. This was published probably within the last 2 years, so it's also not a new title, but it is a story that I'm very interested in hearing about, especially because I have done research on Medusa. I am very curious about some of the other women who were involved with the hero Perseus. The next book I have is Orphea and Eurydice, and this is by Elise John. This is a gender-swapped story that is based on Orpheus and Eurydice. This is also a semi-new title. This is a myth that I have not seen retold yet. I'm curious how the gender swapping plays into this story. The next book I have is No Season But the Summer, and this is by Matilda Leiser. I had someone gift this to me for Christmas, and it's been on my shelf. I did start it, but I didn't get a chance to really keep going with it, so I'm looking forward to reading this retake on Persephone and Demeter in Hades. So far, the myth retellings I've told you about are all based on Greek mythology. This next book is based on Hindu and Indian mythology. This is Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. I've already read her previous book, which is called Kaikeyi, and it was based on the evil stepmother from the Ramayana. This book focuses on Ganga, a river goddess. So I'm very excited to read her sophomore novel, and was published last year. So I'm very intrigued by this, and I do love the cover. It's gorgeous. I'm excited to add this one to my Hindu and Indian mythology shelf. This next book is also not Greek mythology. This is Babylonia by Costanza Casati, and this is another UK cover, so the American cover does look a little bit different. This is based on the ancient Assyrian Empire, and I'll show you the inside. The end papers are gorgeous. If you've never heard of Assyria, this is based on kind of the Mesopotamian area, so Caspian Sea and Babylon. The end papers in the back are also very pretty. I'll show you those as well. But this is a bit different from my usual taste, so I'm very excited to get into this. If Costanza showed the same amount of love and care that she put into Clytemnestra, I'm sure I'm going to love Babylonia as well. Moving into some translations, I have here The Odyssey by Emily Wilson. So this is in verse, and it is translated by Wilson, and she is the first female translator of The Odyssey and the Iliad. The Odyssey was published several years ago. I have this one in a paperback, and then I had someone gift me the Iliad by her this Christmas. They were kind enough to get me the hardback, so now I have to get something to make it match. Hopefully I can get a nice paperback version. This is also going to be in verse. Just like the ancient text, we have Emily Wilson's translations, and she has kept them in verse. I'm very interested in her perspective on these very, very classic tales. Moving back into some novels, this myth retelling is by A.D. Brine, and this is Horses of Fire. This is focused on the women of Troy. The women of Troy typically don't get a whole lot of attention. They don't get a lot of care to them. It's mostly focused on Greek women. So I'm looking forward to this and getting a little taste of the women of Troy. The last author's works today are all by Jennifer Saint. I have all of 4 of her novels, and I have only read 1 of the 4, so I'm going to get into those real quick. Jennifer Saint's first novel is Ariadne, and I read this in 2021, so about 4 years ago, and I have been looking forward to reading the rest of her novels. This is the UK edition. I have my own copy up here that I read initially, and that's the American version. I've been trying to get a hold of the UK edition for a really long time. I love the cover work. The illustrations are all so beautiful. Even the back. I mean, it's just so pretty. This is Ariadne. I have 3 more novels by Jennifer Saint that I'm hoping to get to this year. Saint's second novel is Electra. Here she is in all her glory. Electra is one of the children of Jocasta and Oedipus. This is the inside. I'm really interested in Electra and getting a book that is focused on her. I've been starting a different book called The Children of Jocasta. The story of Oedipus and Jocasta and Antigone isn't really retold a whole lot. So The Children of Jocasta by Natalie Haynes has been a very interesting book. So I'm very curious to get another perspective and take on that story with Jennifer Saint. Saint's third novel is Atalanta. This is the story about the only female Argonaut in the group of warriors who travel with Jason to retrieve the Golden Fleece. So Atalanta is a female warrior. I'm very excited to read this. I'll show you the inside as well. You got Stag on one side, and I believe this end has the dog. So, I mean, absolutely gorgeous cover illustrations. All of these are UK hardbacks. I specifically got them because of the cover art, and I just feel like it really is so perfect for these stories. It's gorgeous. And I read a retelling about Medea by Rosie Hewlett in 2024 for my master's thesis. Yep. Right over here, Rosie Hewlett included Atalanta. I'm very curious to see a whole story around this character. Saint's fourth novel that is out right now is Hera. So of course this is our queen of all the Greek gods, and I'll show you the end papers here too. One of her animals is the peacock. I love that it is incorporated into the illustrations, especially here on the back cover. This is Saint's first novel that is specifically focused on a Greek goddess. I'm very curious about how we can take all of these different stories that involve the Greek gods and the Olympians and condense into a novel. I'm excited to get into this one. I'm planning on reading her books in publication order. I've already read Ariadne. I will go Electra, Atalanta, and then Hera. The last book I will feature here today is The Children of Jocasta, and this is by Natalie Haynes. I did mention this earlier. I am started. I started it at the very end of 2024. I have been kind of switching between several books. I am a bit of a mood reader. This is focused on two of the women who are a part of the Oedipus Rex familial line, focused on Jocasta and then Ismene, who is the sister of Antigone. Natalie Haynes is kind of stringing together the stories of Oedipus Rex and Antigone into one novel. So far, it is pretty good. It is a little bit harder to keep up with just because this myth is not quite as widely known as some of the other retellings like the Odyssey or the Iliad. It's a different set of characters, and it can get confusing if you don't know those stories already. I am enjoying this take so far. I have enjoyed some of Natalie Haynes' other books, such as Stone Blind, which was focused on Medusa, and 1,000 Ships, which is focused on the women in the Trojan War. She has been known to do several of these feminist retellings. This is one of her backlist books. It's been out for a while, and I'm just now getting to the party. Those are all the books that I have for you today. Those are all the books that I currently have physical copies of on hand, and they are on my TBR list already. If there are more that get published this year, I will probably bump them up if they become higher priority. I know that Madeline Miller is working on a Persephone retelling. Should that get published this year, that will be one of my top priority books because Madeline Miller is one of my favorite authors. I don't really have a list in terms of priority other than I really would love to get to these novels this year. If there's any more that I discover, then they'll just get added to the list. I'm curious if we have any books on our shared TBRs. Let me know in the comments. Subscribe and like if you enjoy this content. Bye!